What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode 27 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. As always, I am Tim Gettys. I'm joined by the coolest dudes in video games, Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller. Portillo's here. He's doing stuff. I don't know if he's the coolest dude in video games, though.
Thank you
Greg.
for
I'm
introducing him.
Yeah, usually I don't.
Can he be the coolest dog in video games? Who's cooler than him?
I'm trying to think of...
There's a lot of cool dogs in
the
video
dog
games.
from Duck Hunt I would give over him.
Okay, well, yeah, sure. Dogs have been in a
So
video
he's
game.
the second coolest dog.
What about
in video
Dog
games.
Meat from Fallout?
Rad Dog?
What about Shadow from Dead to Rights?
No.
Shadow, no!
Portillo's cooler than him.
Okay.
For sure. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kind of Funny Gamescast, if you're not informed, it's like the Game Over Greggy show over on Kind of Funny, except it's about video games, where we break it out topic by topic, Monday through Thursday, full episode on Friday. You can get the whole thing early at patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. You should do that, because it's not that much money. You can just give $1. You get it early.
No.
You could.
No, you that's not
You
true.
don't get it early for $1.
No. If you give $5, you get it early.
Yeah.
If you give $10, you get it early in video.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. But for $1, you get the bonus episode.
We're not even sure.
Yeah.
No, none of us know how Patreon works.
You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. It's not worth $1 this time, guys. Evacuate. I'm sorry.
You
I
know what? It's not
apologize.
important. Never mind.
Yeah, but
Cisco, just delete this off your iPod.
yeah, come on, Cisco. I like you so much. You do a lot of cool things. So before we get into all these topics and stuff, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Our friends over at Leaping Tiger,
Oh, yeah.
they have this app that lets you find. It's a social gaming app where you can find people to play games with.
Right.
And
It's
do
a
all that
networking
stuff.
app for if you want to play online games together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a great idea.
You're backing into this all wrong. Leaping Tiger are among our best friends. They're Patreon supporters. The reason we're talking about them is that over on Patreon they backed us at the month of shoutouts.
Yes.
I think our second ever month of shoutouts for somebody. So yeah, Leaping Tiger. And so what they're doing is making it sweet. So you go, if you're iOS, you go download this app. You don't if you're Android, it's not there yet, but you can go to the Leaping Tiger standalone website, get on it
Which
there.
is leaping-tiger.com.
Good job. I just assumed Kevin was going to put it on the air.
He will.
Put it right there or whatever.
That's what,
So
for the
you-
audio people.
You go there and you download it. You put all your information in, and then you can say you're checking into a game like Rocket League, and then it would ping around looking for other Rocket League
Yeah.
players that you could go play and get together with and find other people. To do it, here's the best part about Leaping Tiger in this app, right? Is that they're just getting started. They're a startup, just like Kind of Funny. A few months behind Kind of Funny, but I'm not going to knock them for that. Starting up so that no one's downloading the app yet because it's brand new. So what they're doing is these different game nights on every Wednesday. So Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. So convert it to your time zone from 7 to 9.
So the one we're talking about right now is July 15th.
Okay,
Yes.
I believe you. I didn't
I'm
do
gonna-
that
I'm gonna
much
calendar
work.
that, but-
It's the Wednesday of
July
Wednesdays.
15th. Yes.
The next Wednesday.
July 15th.
July 15th, 7 p.m. Pacific time. You can go check in, play Rocket League on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation Plus game, free to play. You can find other people to play as, and they're going to pick from that group. You'll hopefully be playing with other Kind of Funny people because we're driving everybody to do it. They're going to pick somebody new in a PlayStation Vita. So not only did they sponsor us, just make a cool app so you can play other gamers, they're also giving away a PlayStation Vita,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
And that right now, it's like really about the Kind of Funny community.
Right now, it's an app for
It's
you,
literally
the Kind of
just
Funny
the Kind of
community.
So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. Definitely check it out. What are you going to say, Colin?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'm letting you do your thing.
All right. Well,
Please do your thing.
leading into what the first topic is, the topic is the future of Sega. Sega's been going through a whole bunch of stuff. Obviously, you have their huge hit, Sonic the Hedgehog. He's doing He's
Huge.
doing great.
He
He's
is
never
doing
faltered
fantastic.
from his
No.
course of greatness.
Just so good. But Colin, this is another one of those things where, we'll be eating lunch and we're having these discussions about stuff, and you're like, we should talk about this on the Gamescast. And you start going into, I read this article, and you do the Colin thing with the glasses and all that stuff.
Right.
And so
Oh, dear.
please do you. I want you to do that now and inform the people on what's so interesting about Sega.
Sure. Today on Colin and Greg, actually, we talked about this too. So there's some redundancy here for people that listen to this podcast, and also watch that show. And there's certainly some crossover there, but bear with us because we'll have a more in-depth conversation about it. Tamor Hussein over at GameSpot writes, "We betrayed fans and want to be a brand again," says Sega CEO. And the story in part reads, Sega CEO Hajime Satomi has said that he believes the company has betrayed the trust fans put in it over the last few years, and added it is now aiming to improve the quality of its games in hopes of reestablishing itself as a valuable brand. Speaking in an interview with Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu, which has been translated by Silicon Era, Satomi said he has been discussing strategies to improve the quality of its games with employees. Quote, "I've been talking to employees about how Sega should start putting serious consideration into quality from this point on," which is a bizarre quote. "Particularly in North America and Europe, where it's always been more of a focus on schedules. I believe that if we can't maintain quality, it would be better not to release anything at all." That's one quote. And then he says later, quote, "We did our best to build a relationship of mutual trust with older fans of Sega, but looking back, there have been some titles that have partially betrayed that trust in the past 10 years. Sega in the 90s was known for its brand, but after that, we've lost trust and we're left with nothing but reputation. We'd like to win back the trust and become a brand once again." So that's basically the meat of it, is that the CEO of Sega, and I think he's been the CEO for quite some time, actually. I can look into that.
Which is the weird part.
Yeah, he's been. I want to look because it says Hajime Satomi was the founder of Sammy Corporation. So when Sammy and Sega merged, presumably that's when he became CEO. So yeah, it's interesting just because he's basically saying, A, we didn't focus on quality, which is a fucking bizarre admission, but nonetheless an honest admission.
Yeah.
And that they're saying that they might not need to release all these games, and maybe they shouldn't release games. Maybe it's better for their brand not to release some of these games. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, or just, see where the conversation goes about Sega's status right now, because Sega really is, in my mind, and I don't mean this to be mean, a bit of a joke. And,
100%.
They were a powerhouse for a very fleeting moment. And that's what I think people kind of forget, is that Sega, when they released the Master System, was getting trounced by the NES. They released the Genesis in '89, 2 years before the SNES came out, and no one cared. It wasn't until after they launched it again, really, with Sonic, that in 91, 92, that people really started to pay attention to it. And then they had a few years of parity with Nintendo, and then they just disappeared again. And I'm a huge lover of the Dreamcast specifically, so it's not that I have a grudge against Sega. I just think that his words are a little hollow to me, in the sense that this would have been a good admission 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I really personally feel like it's too little too late for Sega, to be irrelevant at all. The only reason they're relevant now is because they own Atlas.
Yeah. The weird part about it is, in what I said on Colin Moriarty Live, is that it sounds like a quote from a new CEO. It sounds like somebody who just started and is like, hey, the other guys fucked things up. We're going to get back to focusing on being a brand you can trust. It's not. That would be super endearing of, hey, I'm the new guy and I know things have been bad here, but I'm changing and this is my vision. For it to be the guy that's been there forever and say that maybe it's time to start thinking that way.
Yeah.
It's like, it sounds like it's too late. You should have started thinking that way a long time ago. It is over. I agree with Colin that Sega is a joke. It's one of, you look at Sega and it's like, you're still around? Like, how are you still around? I don't even understand, because when I got here, I remember to San Francisco and started covering stuff like Sega coming through for appointments and doing this, and I remember they were like the first big layoffs that we covered, that they like cut all of their San Francisco PR, this, that, or the other. They kept moving offices and they weren't going to do this and that and da-da-da. And then like, for me, the holdout for them was Valkyria Chronicles, that they were publishing that. They never brought 3 over. They kind of then just faded away until it was the time for the next Sonic integration with Mario at the Olympics, or here's the Were Hedgehog. And it's just like, what is happening? How is this still going on? How are they still being a business?
Well, I think the thing there, and what you're saying about the CEO, you're shocked that it's not a new one, is that I feel that the old CEO did the money thing, the business thing of just like, we're just going to do something that just makes money. And like Sonic made money. Sonic sold for a long time. The quality of the game sucked, but like the games were selling.
Yeah.
And so I think that we're finally seeing with the last couple games, the sales have not been that good.
Yeah.
And the choices of going with the Wii U have not been smart. And like, there's just all these like things where that business structure is finally not working for them.
Sure.
And I think that's the big difference, where they're like, okay, we gave up on quality a long time ago, so we just did the whole cash grabs. Now that's not working. We got to go back to the quality, because it's the Netflix model that we always talk about. It is this more premium content. And when you are, like, Sega no longer has hardware. It hasn't for a decade.
Yeah.
I feel like they need to go back to making a quality games, not quantity needs to go away. It needs to just be quality, and then they can finally get back to being something, but they're never going to be what they were. And I just, at this point, it's the question of, can they not be a joke? I think everyone knows they're a joke, but it's more like, is there anything they can do to fix that?
I don't think there's enough time. I don't think they have enough time to turn it around and get back to where they need to be, right? Now, Colin's made the point before that, Sega is like Konami, right? That like not all of their money is in publishing these video games and making these video games.
Yeah, I would say most of their money isn't. I mean, that's why I was on my phone, I was looking at some stuff like Sega Sammy Holdings is like their company, like the whole company, and Sammy is a very profitable pachinko and amusement kind of company. So like very similar to Konami, they just do other shit. They're a holding company, so like they just have lots of subsidiaries that don't have anything to do with video games, and that's where they make their money. But I think they've lost focus. Here's the thing: I think that we have to kind of come to. At least this is my opinion. I know some people strongly disagree with it. Sega having studied Sega, having played Sega games, and having even been a Sega, console owner, because I owned Dreamcast when it came out. I went back and bought things like Genesis later on, and on eBay when I was in high school, and obviously played. I even traded my SNES for my Genesis for a friend's Genesis for like a while until I got in trouble and I had to switch it back when I was a kid.
What, your parents found out?
Yeah, and I was like, well, you saved me because that was a fucking awful trade.
Yeah, my God.
But I played all these games. I wanted to play Shinobi, whatever the fuck it was that I wanted to play. Sega had quality games. Sega has heart, and I appreciate that. Like the story, as we've said a million times, I don't want to beat a dead horse or whatever. But Console Wars by Blake Harris talks about Sega has a lot of heart. Like they really did take it to Super Nintendo and to Nintendo at the time, and scared the shit out of Nintendo. And it was the first time Nintendo was ever scared by anyone until PlayStation almost put them out of business. And there's something admirable about that, but I think we give Sega too much credit. And I think we have for a very long time, and I've always felt that way. Sega has never been on Nintendo's level, ever. They've been a publisher of a wide array of games, including some internally developed games, and some of them I really love, i.e. Phantasy Star. But they've never had like a quality offering that rivals any of the big publishers or any of the big developers that you respect. So while they've had these games that we've appreciated or have been on their console first or appeared on their console first, like Soul Calibur, for instance, will always be identified with Sega, right?
Crazy Taxi.
Crazy Taxi is another great example. And they deserve some credit. Like they were the guys that would publish Platinum's games when no one would touch Platinum. Like when Platinum was an unknown entity. I appreciate those kinds of things. So I'm not necessarily trying to shit on them from a base level. There's good people that work there. There are talented people that work there. It's just that when we talk about Nintendo, for instance, Nintendo and Sega are similar in the sense that they both come from a similar heritage, a shared heritage, and often shared a lot of barbs with each other. I'll always believe that Nintendo in the back end has the talent necessary to turn things around and the wherewithal to turn things around, and most importantly, the money to turn things around and make better decisions. To me, Sega doesn't have any of that. They do not have the talent that Nintendo has. They do not have the talent that a lot of big third-party publishers have in terms of their own array of studios, with the exception of Atlas. And Atlas, of course, owning Persona Team and a few other really important IP is really going to be their salvation in the video game space, and I think everyone knows that. And someone had pointed out to me that in the Silicon Era and the Famitsu original story, it apparently says, although not reflected in that GameSpot story, that they have been learning from Atlas about the way Atlas deals with its games and takes its time, i.e. Persona 5 will be ready when it's ready. You know what I mean?
Which will not be in 2015 in North America.
So it's a complicated issue because I want Sega to do well, but at the same time, what are they going to do? Sonic, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't care what you do with Sonic. It's not going to be relevant beyond, a small group of people or kids or whatever. Sonic has been run into the ground to such a significant degree that it'll never be Mario again, the way it used to be. You know what I mean? It'll never rival that.
Yeah, that's my thing, though, is like that's a fact. It never will. But I don't think that it is helpless in the fact of being something that's relevant. And I think that it was relevant for a long time, and it wasn't until fairly recently, like the last couple of years, that the quality has dipped so low, like with Sonic Boom, that it is just like a disaster. Because even like the last couple of years of Sonic games, they've been good. They haven't been great, but they've been good, and good enough that like people enjoyed them. And I think that that's important. And like the fact that there was all these Mario Olympic games and all that stuff, like keeping the character relevant. Like Sonic is something that people know. Like little kids, they know who Sonic is. He's had cartoons almost consistently from the 90s.
Sure, and that's what's popular about him now with the cartoons and not the games, which is a dangerous place, I think, for them to be, because that's fickle. Game audiences, I feel like, have more pay more attention and have more of an appreciation for the history of something and why it's important and why it should remain or why it shouldn't remain. Because I disagree with you. I don't think Sonic has been relevant to a gaming audience or a mainstream audience in 15 plus years. And I like, just because he sells games that sell a few million copies here or whatever once in a while, or has a cartoon that's big with some kids, does not make him a relevant force for Sega. And I think that's one of the things that they've not been able to latch onto, is that they need to figure something out. They should put Sonic away for a long time.
But the thing is,
isn't he the only thing that makes money out of this gaming portfolio?
That's the thing, is like they need to put him away, but at the same time, it's like they can't. They just need to fix it. Like they need to do something that Sonic, more than anything with Sega, it has to be the quality. We need a quality game. We need a Mario Galaxy for Sonic. I don't know how that could even happen, because honestly, I don't think it's possible. And as a huge Sonic fan, I love Sonic. Like the Genesis games, for sure. I love those games. They're not Mario Worlds. They never were. So it's like, with this, if they were to make a new Sonic game that is good, it's never going to be the same level of Galaxy. But I'm just saying it needs to be the galaxification of Sonic. So just that level of boost. Because then when you look at the 3D Sonic games, they've never understood what to do with it. How to make Sonic work in a 3D space never has happened. There was the Sonic Adventure games, which are beloved by so many people. I will never understand why. Those games, as far as I'm concerned, are bad games. Like, everything about them is bad. The Sonic levels, fun. Everything else, bad. Voice acting, horrendous. Like, the story, all this stuff is bad about it. The controls, camera, all this shit, horrible. But people will have these fond memories of it, and I think that's a nostalgia thing.
Sure.
Then you start getting into like Sonic on the 360 and PS3, the reboot. And that was just like cringeworthy in terms of story and all that stuff. But again, it was just a even shittier adventure. Then you start getting into they played with the like 2D and like running really fast things. Fun. It just doesn't warrant a full game. And I think that when you see something like Generations, which I think is the best Sonic game we've gotten in probably since the Genesis.
Yeah.
The advanced games were good, but the console game since the Genesis. And that was for the 20th anniversary. We're coming up on the 25th anniversary now. I have a feeling they're going to come out with something next year that I'm going to be interested in, and that's going to be good, if not pretty damn good. But it's not going to be great. And if anything, it's just going to be retreading Sonic's history again, giving people the little bits and pieces that they did love about Sonic in one thing. In terms of a new Sonic game coming out and having gamers everywhere be like, Sonic is a thing again.
I care.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's no way that anyone will ever make you care about Sonic.
No, I mean, maybe they could, because they try to be open-minded. I just think Sega has been a victim for a long time of being too big for its britches in terms of, like, it was thrust in this position of the anti-Nintendo for a while, which made it relevant to a wide audience with the Genesis. Mm-hmm. But the Genesis is all they ever had that was successful. I want to reiterate that. The only thing that Sega has ever done that has had mainstream important financial success was a console that was released in 1989. And for some reason, this company has been limping through existence since then, trying to prove a point, to the point where they had to drop out of the hardware manufacturing race, which was unfortunate because I actually think the Dreamcast was a phenomenal machine.
Ahead of its time.
It was way ahead of its time. It's just that they had no piracy protection and people were waiting for PS2. It was just a stupid time to release a console. Mm-hmm. And they should have learned with the Saturn that they probably just need to not do this anymore.
In the 90s, weren't they like a big deal with arcades and stuff? And that's when arcades were a huge
They still
deal.
are a big deal with arcades. I mean, they still make arcade machines. All I'm saying is that would make them a publisher just like any other publisher. Mm-hmm. For some reason, in other words, what I'm saying is Sega has this mystique about them where we expect more. Some people expect more. They think they're destined for more. And I'm saying that the anomaly was the Genesis.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, the anomaly was the right place, right time. I grew up with an NES. I want to be anti-establishment. I don't want these kiddie games anymore. I need something that speaks to me. That is the Genesis. I mean, that is why the Genesis was big. That's why the Genesis rivaled the Super Nintendo, because it certainly wasn't based on the quality of games, and it certainly wasn't based on the hardware.
When you look at Sega right now as a video game publisher, video game developer, right? I look at them and think of them as the THQ that hasn't fallen yet. We always talk about the spectrum. I always talk about the spectrum of AAA developers here, and then you got your indies here, and there used to be all these games in the center, like Dark Void or whatever. And then when THQ fell and a couple other publishers like that fell, 2K changed how they're doing games. People got out of the licensed games market. Still right there in that middle section now is Sega, putting out these games that aren't selling enough. So what does that mean? How much time is left in the hourglass? And that's when you come down to these quotes of, we need to start thinking about quality. Is it too late? I would like to think so. I'd like to think there's someone over there watching the financials going, that's a great idea. We don't have 4 years for you to turn this around, to put all your money into this game, to make it awesome, to get this thing, to change how people think of you and what this means and da-da-da. Maybe Atlas's influence does that, but maybe they also just like, all right, Atlas is what is our home console version, or you know what I mean, our home game setup. Everything else is the Sega from the arcades, Sega from these other branches of business.
Yeah, I think that, again, like Sega's a corporation, and I was just looking at their financials. They're profitable.
Yeah,
like it's not like Sega is going to disappear. It's a very similar situation to Konami, like we were just saying before. It's just, if you look at them not based on the things that we do not care about in the United States or in the West, because we do not deal with Sega on any other level, just like we do not deal with Konami on any other level other than a video game publisher, they need to be smarter. And unfortunately for them, they do not have a Metal Gear. or they don't even have a Castlevania or a Contra. You know,
I think
they have
Sonic.
They have Sonic. Yeah, but Sonic is
way more important to people than Contra.
Sure, but I think that I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that if you gave a top tier developer 3 years and the money they needed to make, and you said make a Contra game and make a Sonic game, that the Contra game would be more relevant and would sell better.
I don't know. I really don't know.
I do, because
that.
the difference between Contra and Sonic is that Contra has been shit upon for fucking years and brought down to such a level where they've done bad game after bad game after bad game after bad game after bad game. It just hasn't been done to Contra. It hasn't even been done to Castlevania, and it certainly hasn't been done to Metal Gear. So I'm just making a contrast.
Castlevania had the Lords of Shadows and all that shit.
It had 2 Lords of Shadow games that were bad from one developer. That's exactly the point. You know what I mean? Like, they stopped making Castlevania games after that. They're just done, you know? And that's kind of the point, is that it seems like Konami, for as ridiculous as that company is, has at least learned its lesson that, like, we can't disrespect franchises like this with people with their expectations. I really do feel like Sega has been a victim of expectations, and maybe even its own expectations, and certainly gamers' expectations, because if you look at them basically as just any other publisher, any other small-scale publisher, which is what they are, they're fine. You know, they've published Valkyria Chronicles, they published Max Anarchy and Vanquish, and like games that people really like. But because they have this ubiquitous figure around them, even though they don't really own many developers anymore or anything like that, they just have a weird way about them. And I think and that's why I was saying, put Sonic away. Sonic might be the only thing that's relevant. That's not going to be their salvation. Their salvation is if they want to save themselves as a publisher and a tastemaker of games, they need to start investing in developers, and then they need to start investing in new IP. And that's going to be it, because Sonic's a relic, man. Because unlike Mario, they've not done a good job of keeping him relevant. You know, they didn't treat him with respect. Nintendo treats Mario with respect. And we might get a lot of Mario games, and some of them are better than others, but they're all pretty great. Mm-hmm. And you just can't say that about Sonic. And you can't say that about anything Sega does.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like Sonic is a big cartoon right now. Sonic Boom Games maybe even sold respectably enough, even if they didn't do that well, that they're making a fucking another one. So, I mean, clearly they made some money on that. It's just to say, this is the wrong angle for them to take. I want to see a strong and vibrant Sega, and I think that that's only possible through like a reassessment of what they do and how they do it.
And you hope that's what this quote leads to, right?
Absolutely. To understand that, hey guys, it's an astonishing admission on the former CEO being like, we do not concentrate on quality, basically is what he's saying, or that's not what we put first. It's like, it's an unbelievable thing to say.
Yeah.
So it shows something that's broken there, but
I mean, it's similar to, Activision or it was or Ubisoft coming out and saying that the Assassin's Creed, that it's annualized because people buy it.
Right.
Similar statement.
It is similar, but there's a difference between Ubisoft and Sega. Ubisoft makes games that people like. So they can say things like that. You know what I mean?
No,
it's not like they're making Assassin's Creed.
And they're terrible.
I don't like Assassin's Creed, but it's not like they're making 5s and 6s. Yeah.
When we talk about Sonic games, like if you look at the reviews, it's not like there's been a million 5 and 6 Sonic games. Like Sonic Boom has been the low point. Sonic 06 was the low point. In between, there was a lot of 8s, a lot of 7.5s. Like that's not bad.
Sure.
But
clearly, it's not been good enough. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I'm just looking up something real quick because I want to make sure that I have my information good here. You guys can keep going if you want.
I mean, it's a fall from grace in terms of what it was, though. What Sonic was. You know, I mean, everybody looks back at Sonic on Genesis with rose-colored glasses, and I know you've gone back and played since then and said we're wrong, that it is still good. And
but even then, though, it's good. It's not. Yeah. I know it's not.
But when you were a kid and you were playing these games and they were colorful and bright and there's robots and the colors are popping and the blast processing, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. You know what I mean? And like, if that's where you left off in your head and then you play these other Sonic games, they don't capture that.
I mean, the thing that I think the old Sonic games had more than anything was the presentation felt so right. The music was so catchy and was so ingrained in what it was. It had a feel to it.
Yeah.
Then you play these new Sonic games and you play all this stuff. And it's like, I have the same critique about Mario, where it's like, ever since Mario 64, it's all looked the same. It's all been like, here is the art style we use. This is what Mario looks like. This is what the world looks like and sounds like and all this stuff. And, you put him in space, you put him whatever. It's all going to look and feel the same.
Yeah.
Whereas Sonic hit that same point too. But that looking and sounding the same is not good.
Yeah. They gave him a scarf and really long legs.
Yeah.
Sonic.
God damn it.
Knuckles.
Yeah, I'm just reading because I want to make sure I have my history right. Like
Tails.
Sega by 2002 had 5 consecutive fiscal years of net losses, and then Sammy bought controlling share of Sega for $1.1 billion. That kind of brought it back to relevance, and then they started expanding and making acquisitions. This is when they started getting studios like Relic, who is known for like Homeworld and Company of Heroes and stuff. This is when they got Demiurge. This is when... Actually, Demiurge was later, I think. That was THQ-ish. This is when they got Creative Assembly.
Creative Assembly, huh?
So yeah, I'm trying to look at like where they are now because Relic came from THQ. That's what it was. Okay. And then they had Bizarre Creations, Backbone, Obsidian was under there. I forgot about all this. Yeah, they worked with Bizarre Creations. It says, I'm reading Wikipedia. They worked with Bizarre Creations, Backbone Entertainment, Monolith, Sumo Digital, Obsidian, Gearbox.
We need a
This is interesting.
Vector Man reboot
Yeah, we do.
and a Comic Zone
Yeah.
reboot.
Comic Zone could be a cool game.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, and it says, due to the decline of packaged game sales, both domestically and overseas in 2010, Sega began layoffs and reduction of their Western businesses, such as Sega shutting down 5 offices based in Europe and Australia in 2012. Blah, blah, blah. And then we remember that they shut their San Francisco office, their ubiquitous and famous San Francisco office, which I think happened this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started investing in mobile development studios. So I don't even know if they're, I think they might be like Konami where they're going to start investing in different kinds of games that they think are more profitable for them, for their home market. That makes more sense for the Japanese-centric nature of Sega.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. I know some people think I hate Sega. It's not really about that. Because again, I was especially late in their life, I did everything I could to support Dreamcast. I had a fucking shit ton of Dreamcast games.
Mm-hmm.
Just to say that
You have Choo Choo Rocket?
Choo Choo Rocket was a jam.
It was the jam for sure.
But it is to say that I really do feel like Sega's always been a victim of optics. Like it's always been a victim of like it's not what you think it is. The company isn't what you think it is.
It's not as big of a deal as you feel like it is.
Right. Or feel like it should be.
Yeah.
Based on just something that happened once. You know?
Yeah.
And for that, strangely, a lot of people that play games today don't even remember or weren't around for. You know? And so it's amazing that that's actually been something that's like bled into gaming culture. And maybe that says a lot more about Sega than I give them credit for. You know? Maybe we want we want to root for Sega. We want Sega to do well because they're the underdog. We want Sega to do well because they're against the entrenched interests and stuff like that. But that Sega's 20 years old now.
Yeah.
That Sega's dead. Oh, man. Long live new Sega.